Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for a deep dive into some seriously cool English stuff?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Today we're focusing on time adverbs. You know, those little words and phrases that tell us when and how often we do things. Super useful for making your English sound way more natural and fluent.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of us get stuck using just the basic time adverbs like always and never. But there's a whole world of these adverbs out there that can make your English way more interesting and precise, right?
Absolutely. Like, think about it. Instead of just saying, I go to the gym, you can say, I regularly go to the gym.
Totally. That paints a much clearer picture. It's like you're someone who makes it a habit.
Right. And the cool thing is there are so many of these adverbs to choose from beyond just the basic ones.
Okay, so let's dive into some examples. What are some time adverbs that we might not be using to their full potential?
Well, how about frequently? It's like a step up from often. It means something happens, say, 75% of the time. Like, I frequently forget to charge my phone.
Ugh, tell me about it. So frequently is for things we do most of the time, but not always.
Exactly. And then there's seldom, which means almost never. It's a bit more formal than rarely, and it can make your sentences sound really sophisticated, like, I seldom eat fast food, but when I do, I go all out.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so we've got frequently for things we do a lot, seldom for things we rarely do. What about good old often? Where does that fit in?
Often is kind of in between, maybe around 70–80% of the time. It's your go-to word for things that happen pretty regularly. And by the way, did you know there are actually two ways to pronounce it? Often and often are both perfectly acceptable.
Whoa, I never knew that. I've always just said often.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Hmm?
Now, let's move on to usually. This one means something happens most of the time, but there are some exceptions. Like, I usually cook dinner at home, but sometimes I order takeout.
So it's our typical behavior, but we're open to changing things up.
Yeah. And then we have regularly, which is great for describing things we do on a schedule, even if we miss a day or two here and there. Like, I regularly go for a run in the morning, but if it's raining, I might skip it.
Got it. So there's a pattern, but it's not set in stone.
Okay.
This is great. We're building up quite the collection of time adverbs here. But what about those times when something happens less predictably? Do we have specific adverbs for those situations?
Of course. We have phrases like every now and then. That's perfect for describing those things we do occasionally without any set schedule. For example, every now and then I like to treat myself to a spa day.
Yeah, those little indulgences. It's all about balance, right?
Right. And then there's from time to time, which is pretty much the same as every now and then. It means something happens occasionally, but not on a regular basis. Like from time to time, I reorganize my bookshelf.
Makes sense. It's like those random moments of inspiration. Okay, so we've got every now and then and from time to time for those spontaneous activities. But I'm wondering, are there any other ways to express frequency in English, like beyond these single-word adverbs and phrases?
You bet. We also have phrases that really pinpoint how often something happens, like every day is pretty straightforward. It means something happens, well, every single day. I drink water every day.
Simple enough. But what about those in-between days, like when something happens every other day?
We have every other day, or you can say every second day. Both mean the same thing. For example, I wash my hair every other day.
Perfect. So every day for those daily rituals, every other day for those things we do on alternating days. All right, this is a lot to take in. We've got adverbs for things we do frequently, seldom, and everything in between. We've also learned about phrases that express specific frequencies, like every day and every other day. But how does all this connect back to our listeners? How can they actually use these adverbs to improve their English conversation skills?
That's the key question. It's all about taking these adverbs and actually incorporating them into your daily conversations. Think about your own routines and habits. What do you do frequently? Seldom, from time to time.
That's a great point. By consciously choosing more specific adverbs, you can make your English way more interesting and engaging.
Exactly. It's like painting a more vivid picture for the person you're talking to. And the more you practice, the more natural these adverbs will feel.
Okay, I'm loving this. We're becoming adverb masters. Now, I was looking through the source material for today's deep dive, and honestly, some of the words threw me off.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, like brew. They use brew to talk about coffee. What exactly does brew mean?
Okay, well, brew is just the process of making coffee. It's like taking the coffee grounds and adding hot water to make that delicious drink.
Right, right. And what about a pot of coffee? Is that different from just a cup?
Yeah, a pot of coffee is more than just one cup. It's like a whole batch of coffee, enough to share.
Got it. A pot of coffee. for those mornings when you need that extra boost. Okay, and then there was this phrase, up and about. What does that mean exactly?
Up and about just means someone is out of bed and moving around, like they're awake and starting their day.
Okay, so it's like saying someone's up and ready to go. Now, there's another word I came across, set aside. They use it to talk about time. What does set aside mean in this context?
It means to save or reserve a certain amount of time for something. Like, I set aside 30 minutes every day to read.
Ah, okay, so it's like making time for something important.
Exactly. I think it's time we do a quick recap of all the adverbs we've talked about.
Yeah, good idea. It's easy to get lost in all these fascinating details.
Right. So let's start with seldom. What does that one mean again?
Okay, seldom means almost never, very rarely. Like something that almost never happens.
Perfect. Now, what about at which time? How would you use that in a sentence?
At which time is like pointing to a specific moment in time when something happens. Like the meeting started at 10 a.m., at which time everyone was already present.
Nice. That's a great example. Okay, one last phrase for this recap. Once in a while. What does that mean?
Once in a while is another way of saying every now and then. It's something that happens occasionally, not very often, but it does happen sometimes.
Excellent. Now, let's turn it over to you, our listeners. Can you think of a time when you might use from time to time?
Take a moment and consider that. How would you describe something you do occasionally, but not on a regular basis? Remember, there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about finding the words that best express your own unique experiences.
We'll be back soon to continue our exploration of all these amazing time expressions and vocabulary words. All right, welcome back. You guys ready for more adverb action?
Totally. I'm excited to keep digging into all these cool little words.
Me too. We were just talking about from time to time before we took a little pause there. What about oftentimes? Is that basically the same as saying often, just like with more emphasis?
That's a good question. Is oftentimes just a stronger way of saying often?
Pretty much, yeah. It's like you really want to highlight how often something happens. Like you could say, oftentimes I find myself daydreaming about my next vacation.
I can definitely relate to that. Okay, so oftentimes is like often on steroids. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious about this word cosmetics. I know it has something to do with like beauty stuff, but can you break it down for us?
Sure. Cosmetics are basically any products you use to change or enhance your appearance. Like think makeup, lotions, perfume, all that good stuff.
So it's not just makeup. It's like the whole shebang, all those things that help us look and feel our best. Which reminds me, we also came across the word outfit. Is that just a fancy way of saying clothes?
Well, not exactly. An outfit is more than just clothes. It's like a specific combination of clothes that you wear together, like your top, your pants, your shoes, any accessories. It all creates a certain look or style.
Ah, so it's about the whole picture, how everything comes together. That makes sense. Okay, back to the adverbs. There's one that's been bugging me a little. Whenever. Is that basically the same as saying when?
They are similar, but whenever has more of a like anytime or no matter when vibe to it. Like whenever you're feeling down, just call me.
Ah, so it's more open-ended, more flexible? Okay, that clears things up. Oh, and there's one more word I wanted to ask about. Apply. Like apply makeup. Is there anything special about how we use apply in this context?
Well, apply in that sense just means to put something on, usually onto your skin or hair, like spreading lotion or putting on makeup.
Got it. It's the action of putting those beauty products to work. All right, we've covered even more time adverbs and some pretty interesting vocabulary words. Now, I want to throw a challenge out to our amazing listeners.
Oh, I like where this is going.
I challenge everyone to describe their own morning routine.
Yes.
Using as many of these new words and phrases as they can.
Yes. That's such a great way to put this knowledge into practice. Think about all those things you do every morning and try to describe them using those awesome time adverbs and vocabulary we've talked about.
Exactly. Let's see those creative juices flowing. Don't be afraid to get specific and have some fun with it.
Absolutely. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to describe your morning routine. It's all about expressing yourself and using the language you've learned.
So think about it, everyone. What does your morning look like? How would you describe it using all these cool new words?
We'd love to hear your descriptions. Share them with us online. Or, better yet, practice using them in real-life conversations.
You got it. The more you use these words, the more natural and fluent your English will become. It's all about practice, practice, practice. And who knows, you might even inspire others to learn something new along the way.
All right, that pretty much wraps up part 2 of our adverb adventure.
Yep, we've covered a ton of ground here.
We've gone from frequently and seldom to oftentimes and whenever. We even learned some fun new vocab along the way.
And most importantly, we've seen how using these specific words and phrases can really make your English stand out.
It's all about expressing yourself clearly and confidently.
So, dear listener, what are you waiting for? Go out there and start using those amazing adverbs and vocabulary words.
And remember, language learning is a journey, not a race. Embrace those little mistakes, keep practicing, and most importantly, have fun.
And we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into the world of time adverbs.
Ready when you are.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to leave you all with a fun little challenge.
I love a challenge.
I want you to picture your ideal morning routine. The perfect start to your day.
Okay, I like where this is going. That perfect morning from the moment you wake up till you're ready to head out the door.
Exactly. Think about all those little details that make it so special.
Yeah, like what makes it feel so perfect.
Right. And here's the challenge. I want you to describe that ideal morning routine using all the awesome language we've talked about today.
Ooh, I like that. So use those time adverbs to tell us when and how often you do those things.
Yes, like do you usually meditate for 10 minutes? Or do you seldom hit the snooze button?
And don't forget those vocabulary words we talked about. What's your outfit like? Do you brew a whole pot of coffee?
Get creative with it. This is your chance to really show off those English skills.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's all about expressing yourself and having fun with the language.
So think about it, everyone. What does your perfect morning look like? And how would you describe it in English?
We'd love to hear your descriptions. Share them with us on social media, or even better, try using those descriptions in real-life conversations.
Yeah, the more you practice, the more natural those words and phrases will become. And you never know who you might inspire along the way.
Absolutely. Inspiring others is the best part. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of time adverbs.
It's been a fun journey. We've covered so much.
We've explored all sorts of time adverbs and phrases, from frequently to seldom to oftentimes, and everything in between.
And we've seen how those little words can make a big difference in how we express ourselves in English.
Absolutely. It's all about finding the right words to paint a clear and vivid picture for the person you're talking to.
And remember, language learning is all about having fun and experimenting. So don't be afraid to try new things, make mistakes, and keep learning.
Exactly. Embrace the journey. That's where the real magic happens.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining us on this awesome language adventure.
Thanks, everyone. Until next time, keep those adverbs flowing.